You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another fun episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
My name is Rob, and welcome to episode number 977. Crazy to be saying that out loud. Thank you for hanging with us, and especially those of you, because I know there are a few, if not a lot, of you out there that have been with us from probably pretty close to day one. We appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. We also appreciate everyone who supports the industry. You know, it's so funny. I just found a new application that utilizes LAANC access because with, all the stuff that's been going on with the other apps. And I got to say, UASidekick, if you haven't checked out UASidekick on the App Store, you've really got to check it out. It's an amazing app. They did not pay us to advertise whatsoever, but so far, I am really loving their application. In fact, I've got to put it in my UAS folder. And here's the deal. Drone U is here because we want to help other pilots succeed. We want to help drone service providers, but we also want to help enterprise clients as a whole. And I think it's really, the industry is kind of in this teeter-totter, Rob, because a lot of people are like, are companies just going to be bringing on more and more drone pilots to do jobs? Or are they going to be hiring contractors and drone service providers who are doing their own thing? And look at, there's utility people who couldn't end up hiring enough drone pilots, so they went to contractors, and a lot of Drone U members were happy. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, it really depends on the need. For example, something like that, where it's major, those utility companies aren't going to have the ability to ramp up that fast and get the work that they need. They did try.
It's extremely important to note that they absolutely stuck to their guns for like 3 to 4 months, and they did try. And they spent a lot of damn money, and they failed.
Right, and they learned from that, and I would imagine other companies have learned from them as well, because it's a small industry.
It's also a small sample set, so we got to be careful that we're not saying that just because these 3 or 4 companies had this happen, that doesn't mean that it indicates, the industry as a whole. So
that's true, and we know there are industries that are hiring pilots, or for example, they're taking existing workers. Let's take the insurance industry, right? And they're getting all the people that have been working for them for years and just teaching them how to fly.
True.
So there's a lot of different ways to figure this out, and companies are, it's still in the infancy of this industry, and so people are trying different things to figure it out.
True. By the way, you guys as pilots, you need to be trying new things out as well. Keep things fresh. You got to keep that creative mind going. You got to be watching other people's videos. Don't be like me and try to negate other things to just focus on your work. It's still okay to look at other creative adventures. It might spark an idea. It might spark some motivation, some inspiration, and keep you going.
Indeed. Well said.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to be talking about Part 107. What happens? How do you renew it? What happens after the renewal? There seems to be a lot of question about that because for whatever reason, they're, having issues.
Yeah.
And then, or it's confusing. I don't know. What is the issue? And then, how many people are renewing that certificate? How many people are still doing it?
Good day, guys. It's Joe in Omaha, Nebraska. Question of the day is, I recently renewed my 107 very easily, mostly in part due to the great study aid you have as being a member. Found it very, very, very helpful, especially with brushing up on my airspace. That gentleman did an excellent job. And it was also wonderful not to have to deal with weather again. But now that I've passed, I was given a piece of paper. The lady said, don't lose it. You don't need to do anything. Just have this piece of paper. I asked that, isn't there an expiration on my card? She said, no, that's not an expiration date. That's an issue date. So she said, I don't believe you'll be getting a new card in the mail. You just have this raised piece of paper saying I passed when I passed and nothing more is going to happen and I'm good to go. Paul, is this your same experience? I just Seemed a little odd, but that's the way they're doing it. Do I need to worry? You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the question, Joe, for all the questions. Joe is one of our best question askers, not just in terms of volume, but also in terms of quality. Good questions. And if you're like Joe and have a question, go to askdroneu.com. So I think this pretty much describes your experience, right? As far as it's kind of an interesting thing. They do not send you anything that indicates when your certification expires. But you have to keep the certificate with you, I suppose, in addition to your card. Is that what you do?
You do have to keep the certificate with you at all times. In fact, I have mine in my backpack. But he's right. There is no information in regards to, what do you do after your test? It's actually... It's so simple, it's stupid, which is actually a good thing, because all you do is you take your Part 107 recurrency test, you keep that piece of paper, and then nothing happens. So, you literally have a card on there, and this is a very heated topic, Rob, and I think that we really need to get into this, because he asked a very poignant question, because he knows the question he's asking, which is, how come so many Part 107 pilots are not renewing their not renewing their certificate? You can blame that on a couple of different things. One is, once you get a Part 107 certificate and you get that little green card, there is no expiration date on it. And because the FAA is not really educating law enforcement, or LEOs as we call them, on how to police drones, because they themselves are not policing drones, it's not like, hey, where's your expiration date on here? It's just like, okay, you're a pilot, cool, good job. You probably know more than the police officer anyway. But that being said, there's also the theory that people are not renewing because so many people just went out to go get their drone license because they thought they could build a business and they didn't. There's also the theory that the landscape is just not supporting enough drone pilots. And I just find that's troubling to believe, because the number of job openings that I've seen for drone pilots, not last year, but specifically this year, has increased a lot. But also, this kind of seems natural to me in one aspect or another, Rob, because, when you renew your Part 107, all you're doing is saying, I'm following FAA guidelines, and I know my insurance is going to cover me if, something bad happens.
Sure.
But there is still this world that we live in where people don't have their Part 107, and they're actually getting paid to purposefully break the law. There's one particular FPV racer out there who's making a big name for himself, who's doing really smooth video with an FPV racer, doesn't have Part 107, is like literally flying F1 racing tracks as they are populated with people watching said race. And this car is literally, being flown by an FPV racer during the race, right by people.
Wow.
The epitome of dangerous, and nothing's happening.
Is that in the U.S.?
Yes.
No kidding.
Nothing's happened. Casey Neistat, FAA, nothing happened.
Yeah? Right?
You got people flying over Midtown Manhattan. Nothing happens. You've got big production houses, and I'm not going to name them. The largest production houses you could ever think of in film and TV that are hiring non-107 pilots, because we've finally gotten to a point where people realize there's no enforcement. So we've gone from Hollywood, who would, negate other drone pilots. Like myself, I was kicked off a set one time. This was before Part 107, because they said I didn't have my 333, and I argued with the FAA guy about, hey...
That was a whole different conversation.
Yeah, totally. So we've gone from this, we have to be so careful so that we don't get sued, to now the production houses, like all production houses, which always try to skirt the law in every single way possible. No, it's so true. Literally, it's so true. And they some of those production houses know the law better than most people I've ever met, because they're like, oh, well, Santa Fe says if you want to film in Santa Fe, you need a film permit if you put sticks on the ground. So we ride around with a skateboard on a Ronin S so that we're not putting sticks on the ground. Thus, we don't need a film permit. Thus, it saves us a bunch of money in compliance. I don't blame them. But we've gone from this whole very protective to I don't care anymore.
So I guess the question is, do we see that changing? Because So, for example, when remote ID becomes a reality, those are some of those kinds of things going to then allow the FAA, for example, to be more judicious in terms of enforcing these things?
You know what? I'm not really sure, because you got to think of Uber, right? You need a driver's license to drive a car, but it doesn't say exactly what you're doing. It doesn't say whether you're driving your car to go out and make money with Uber, or whether you're going out and utilizing your driver's license to just drive. I think we're kind of getting to a point, and I mean, there was a very angry series of tweets from one of the writers of SUAS News this last weekend, just outright blatantly calling out some people that they believe have totally hurt the industry. And they actually mentioned someone who we've had on the show, saying that particular company has lobbied to ensure that hobbyists have to use LAANC in the future to fly in restricted airspace. And, I'm actually I'm kind of half and half with that, because I understand and see the point as far as safety is concerned, but yet here we are multiple years down the line and we've not had a problem. So I kind of understand with these guys who are just saying okay, all these rules, they're not being enforced. Nothing bad is happening. Maybe we need to pull back. Maybe we need to let the reins go a little bit further. The second part of his question was very poignant about how many people have, gone through with the recurrency. And essentially, as of March 15th, 2019, 7,306 individuals have taken the recurrent knowledge test. If we look at the same numbers for March 31st, we had 39,000 people get their remote pilot certificates. So that means we've had a drop.
It says, yes, give it a reread. That's funny.
Yeah.
It is not a typo.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's calculate this.
That is really astonishing. I would love to hear from some of those pilots, because they all have their own story. And, you've already given some of the reasons that these people didn't renew, but they all have their own story and their own thoughts. Of course, they probably wouldn't do it on air, at least many of them.
No, they wouldn't. I have actually asked multiple people.
Yeah.
One particular person said, there's no way in hell I'm renewing my Part 107 when the FAA has no enforcement whatsoever. And I said, well, what happens if you get in a crash and your insurance very, very, clearly states you have to be following FAA guidelines in order to be covered? And he was like, okay, I understand that. He's like, but one of my acquaintances, here in the tri-state area was insured, was covered, was doing the right thing under the FAA, and his insurance company didn't cover him. Essentially, he had a motor failure or something, and he crashed into the sidewalk, and one of the blades broke, but it was a carbon fiber blade. This is, again, why you don't use carbon fiber blades. It broke and hit a kid in his calf, and the insurance is not covering him. And now he's personally liable.
Wow.
So this particular individual, not the individual who had the crash, but the individual who's decided not to renew their Part 107, is saying, why should I renew my Part 107 license when you've got these big studio houses that are outright hiring people who don't have a Part 107, because they know that if he doesn't have a Part 107 and he goes out and does this job, that they know that it's going to be like, hey, you're not supposed to do that.
Fly safe. Well, yeah, that insurance story, talk about a small sample size. I mean, so life is a series of risk assessments, right? It's like every day we're making risk assessments in our lives as it relates to the decisions that we're making. And I guess I can understand why some folks are making the decision that they are. And again, I'm hoping that in time and not too distant the future of time, there is the enforcement that we are all looking for to help the industry be the best that it can be.
True, but also, I mean, this kind of totally, here's the why, so Patrick Egan is he's the, what do you call him? The owner of SUAS News, editor, whatever. And he put out that article, quote unquote, did the bottom fall out of the sky? 80% of pilots haven't renewed. I mean, Traxta called that in 2016. Like literally called it. It's not news. Like this is like with any new industry. Everyone, Skittles or Coca-Cola comes out with a new flavor and all of a sudden, oh wow, Coca-Cola stock is up because, everyone loved orange vanilla. It's like, yeah, that was great marketing. When Sarah told me she wanted an orange vanilla Coke, I was like, no.
Oh, that's a real thing?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I was like, no, I'm not buying that. And she's like, why are you being so mean about it? I'm like, because you're just falling prey to their emotional advertising. That's why. And I was like, it's very good advertising.
She might actually like the taste of it.
Well, too bad. I was not going to spend time out of my day. If she wants that orange vanilla Coke, go get it on your own.
Yeah, honey.
No, but it's just like at some point you just got to be like, okay, I just fell prey to really good marketing. So
okay, so that's a whole boy.
And
we could really get up on a rabbit trail.
My point is with the whole Coca-Cola, the orange vanilla Coke, is that when there is something new and exciting, a bunch of people hop on the bandwagon, just like how everyone and their mother is posting about how they're watching Game of Thrones on a Sunday evening. Okay. Everyone who talks about watching Game of Thrones on Facebook, you are just feeding the advertising giant of HBO and Facebook to now sell you on probably at least $300 to $600 of continued merchandise from Game of Thrones because your customer lifetime value was built on the data that you put in all your social media. So now, hey, if you like Game of Thrones and you talk about flying, even I can advertise to you, and I know, statistically speaking, that there's a 12 to 13% chance of a higher, conversion rate on you if I use certain keywords that have to do with Game of Thrones because I know that you like it and it brings back happy emotional thoughts. Like,
This could transition into a really interesting and fun podcast, but we're going to go down a rabbit trail.
No. I want it to continue going. I'm just saying that, like, we can't all jump on something that's exciting. And we, bringing it back, we knew that a lot of pilots probably wouldn't stick on because, like most human beings, they don't stick with things. They don't have high follow through. Their attention span is that of a fly. And frankly, I don't expect any of those people to be successful when they showcase those values. Okay? So it's not really surprising that the number of pilots went down. Here's what's surprising to me, and this is what I wanted to get at as a whole for this entire argument, which is the biggest hindrance to the growth of this industry right now is the FAA. The FAA has said we are not allowing more BVLOS, more flight over people, or any of these waivers because we want to come out with remote ID. And remote ID is going to be the key for us to let the industry move forward. Well, I'm sorry, FAA, but like people are finally getting to a point, even Amazon and Google, where they're saying, you guys have your stuff so out of whack that we are not even using drone rules. Google did not use Part 107 to do drone delivery. They decided to create an air carrier the size of this table to then deliver packages. And it just happened to be a drone. And when the air carrier institutes, you need to make sure that your seatbelts do this, it's like seatbelts not necessary, no humans on board. I mean, I'm not kidding. This is like the type of crap that we're talking about. So what am I trying to say? If the FAA has no accountability, no enforcement, people are not renewing their licenses because they don't see the value, and yet the industry as a whole is being hindered by the FAA. It's like, where do we go from here? Because I know a lot of people, like, for example, all this BVLOS stuff. Do you know how many people that I know that literally just hop the border into Mexico and go do all their BVLOS flights, get their data? And then do you know how many people that the FAA says, oh, you have a BVLOS waiver in? We're not going to say no, but we're not going to say yes. But if you keep doing your thing, we're not going to come after you because we want the data on what works versus what doesn't. That is not a system that is going to A, allow for growth, B, create a scalable system over time, or C, encourage people who want to work inside of that system. Now, maybe I could be wrong here. Maybe remote ID isn't, quote unquote, the license plate thing that allows us to enforce the drone world. No, it's not. We have literally millions of FPV racers that don't even have flight controllers that will work inside of the remote ID system. So it's like, at what point are we doubling down on stupid? And I think that's what Patrick Egan is trying to say.
Okay, so what's the answer then?
I don't know. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't want to be one of those,
we have to be solution
lawyers.
providers.
I agree 100%. I don't want to be one of those armchair lawyers that says, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem, with no solution, because that's all Patrick Egan does. He's just whine, complain. I hate everyone because I'm not getting the way I want. And look, I'm naturally attuned to do that myself, and I'm trying not to, but I'm also saying I don't really know what the answer is for the FAA at this point. I think they need to get out of their own damn way. I think that they need to absolutely loosen up restrictions 100%. And this was also, again, a theme in the new NPRM, is that everyone's like, FAA, you're awfully conservative and not a lot of really bad things are happening. And at some point, you just have to ask yourself, at what point are we being the helicopter parents over drone pilots?
But I think, and I'm not here to defend the FAA, but I will in this particular case. I mean, I think that they have to look at it like one serious accident with fatalities is one too many, right? And
True.
That's the perspective that I think they have been tasked with taking.
I think there's a much larger perspective at hand, which you just kind of alluded to, which is that the world sees the FAA as the aviation leader, not just the United States. Because if you look at the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft crashes, and everyone was getting, down on, well, why didn't the FAA go after Boeing and have more strict safety and do this and do that? Hold on a minute here. We have not seen a 737 MAX crash in the United States. And the answer is very, very simple. And this is why you just can't believe the news. It's because here, people actually go through training protocols. They spend the time to go through training. They understand how important it is, and they follow through with that system. And they also have hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of being an ATP-rated pilot in order to fly a 737 MAX. Whereas when you look at Malaysian Air and you look at this other issue, they can blame whatever they want, and it's easy to blame these things. But at the end of the day, the co-pilot had 200 hours in an airplane. That's nothing. He would not be able to fly in the United States. I just want to make that really clear. In addition, if you remember one of the stories that I think was in Bloomberg, there was a pilot who flew on that exact aircraft the other day because he was flying standby, and they had the same problem, and he knew exactly what to do to fix the problem and avoided a crash.
Wait, not on a MAX though.
It was?
I thought those were all grounded.
No, I'm talking about the last MAX that crashed.
Gotcha.
The Ethiopian or whoever it was. I don't really care who it was. There was another pilot from the United States who sat shotgun in the airplane, standby for a flight. The same problem happened. He knew how to fix it. He fixed the problem. But yet, for some reason, the same problem happened again the next day, and they didn't know how to fix it, and now it's all Boeing's fault, and it's all the FAA's fault. That's what I'm trying to say, is that I think that they're, in the world, people see the FAA as the industry standard for the whole world, even though, in all reality, they only look after the United States and their territories. That's it.
Sure,
and
but so what you're saying is that they've got that sort of
pressure.
Right, and therefore they have to be conservative.
Yes.
Because the whole world is watching. Even though the whole world, other than the U.S., well, that's not entirely true. Canada, there are some other conservative countries as it relates to this new industry, this burgeoning UAS industry. But there are a lot of places where you can go fly over people no problem, right? So,
yes.
anyways.
And it's happening all the time. And those videos are being used in marketing in the United States all the time. The thing is that the FAA, if anything, should be controlling the media and saying like, hey, wait a minute.
Ooh, but do you really want that?
Controlling
like
is not the right way.
To me.
It is government overreach, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that like someone needs to work in PR in that damn office and really get their poop in a group. Because if I were the FAA, I would say with drones that while we are overly conservative and critical is because we are trying to save lives, but we also understand that drones have not cost anyone their life yet. They have a crazy, safety record. Everything is fine. Oh man, I could really go down this rabbit hole, because here we are just talking about, hey, here's what you do after your Part 107 recurrency. And now it's all about, should you do it? And the answer is yes. And you know why the answer is yes? It's very clear. Because the FAA, they don't run the aviation industry. Yeah, I said that right. The FAA is not in control of the skies. And then I know someone's going to say, wait a minute, Paul. I thought you said that the FAA is the only controlling body of the airspace within the United States. Yeah. But how many people do you know that if they don't have an FAA license, or they lost their FAA license, or they just don't want to get an FAA license, have you ever seen those people not fly or stop flying? Nope.
You're talking drones.
Yeah, either. Aircraft, drones, powered parachute,
Really?
helicopters. Yeah.
Wow, that's news
Is
to
it
me.
going to stop them from flying? No. Because
Well,
those pilots...
the honest ones, it will.
No, the only people that will be stopped are the people that understand that if they have a problem, the insurance company is not going to cover them. And not only are they going to screw themselves and their business, but they're probably going to end some relationships too. And not relationships with the FAA, I mean probably with their wife and their family, when their family realizes that their husband could have spent $150 to renew their Part 107 certificate, but instead decided not to, and then still flew a mission commercially. And they crashed on a sidewalk, and one of their propellers went into some kid's leg, and now they're looking at a $1.5 million lawsuit for which they'll never be able to cover. And even if they commit suicide because they're so unhappy with how everything is going, guess what? Your family still has to pay $1.5 million. This is the world we live in. And you can either play inside of the boundaries and continue to just go along your business and not worry about these problems, or you can constantly be worrying, looking over your shoulder, not doing the right thing, because you know what? One day it's not going to be the FAA that comes after you. It's going to be the insurance companies that come after you. And then when they don't get what they want, then it's going to be the courts coming after you. And then when they don't get what they want, then it's going to be the repo guys coming after you. And then you're going to just finally decide that you can't live in the United States anymore because everyone and their mother is coming after you for collections.
This reminds me of one of those commercials where it just got progressively worse. What commercial was that? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, I can see the guy's face right now. He's like, I'm destruction, I'm...
Oh, that's Allstate.
Allstate,
That was a different
yeah.
one. Yeah. Anyways, that's quite the picture you just painted.
But it's true.
That is worst case true.
It is very true. It's also why we have had to make some really tough decisions here at Drone U, because some people are like, out of principle, I can't renew my license. It's like, out of principle, you can't work at this company.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you as an individual have the right to make decisions for yourself. At what point do those decisions affect the people that you love the most around you? And at what point do you decide to just go take the stupid 60-question test, and it's recurrency, it's only 40 questions. Do you just put $150 out and just go take the test? I mean, it's really interesting and it's really fascinating, because we had a training last week. Mm-hmm. And there was clearly a gentleman who was severely concerned with his ability to pass the test, and his fears manifested in everything that he did until he felt comfortable, and then his entire demeanor changed.
His whole world opened up.
Yep. And I think people are so driven by fear that it might actually make their decisions, they're afraid that if they don't pass the 107, now they're on the radar. And now they're going to, they're not going to be able to fly FPV or do this or do that. It's like...
I don't think there is a radar.
Wow. Bombshell. Rob just...
Alrighty. On that note.
What do you think? Look, a risk-based decision. There are a lot of people who did not renew. That's not news to us. Traxta said there was going to be a drop-off before things go back up. And I think we're literally in the midst of things going back up as more and more companies are realizing the value of drones just because of what they're seeing. Sure. Insurance companies are literally having to visualize why they send drones out to houses, and it's because it's simply faster than someone going up on the roof, and they're showing that value proposition in the eyes of the consumer.
It's faster and safer.
And you get your money
expensive.
faster, right? It's all about how you tell the story, guys.
Yeah, so what do I think? I think if you're going to be flying commercially, you should renew. It's pretty simple.
It's pretty stupid simple.
Yeah, I don't think it's much of a question.
I don't know why I got so fired up. I think it's because...
Well, probably because of those numbers. I mean, that's pretty significant. 80%
Well, it
did
is
not.
significant. And then the next article dated yesterday is, hey, FAA, where's the enforcement? Or no, sorry, it's titled, sorry, Pat, it's titled, show me the accountability. And like, I can't argue with this. I can't argue with it at all. Typically, I can't stand the negativity from SUAS News, but there are a lot of things that he's not wrong about. And it's just like, the only thing is that you get more bees with honey. At some point, though, some bees got to die in order to make a decision. So that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes we have to listen
you're
to
sucking them in and then killing them?
No, I'm just trying to say that sometimes you have to listen to the negativity because things get to such a bad point where you have to, like...
It's how you get attention.
Exactly.
How you get people's attention.
Yeah, yes. And unfortunately, we live in the reality of the media controls society. It's just it's just so true.
Look at our news. It's 90% negative, right? Because that's what people watch.
And I think my recent spout of depression is because I've been looking at the news so much.
Stop that right now.
Seriously. It's like so much news. I'm like
Bad
sick
news.
of the news.
Pun intended.
It's hard to stay up with the news and like be happy and cheery and like everything's great, which everything is great. You're just like, when everyone else is dealing with so many problems, you're like, man, I don't have to deal with those problems. Does that make me special? And you're like, no, it doesn't make you special. This
makes me blessed.
Exactly.
But we all have problems.
Yes,
and we're all still blessed.
But also, I think the FAA needs to have their feet held to the fire and say, look.
By who?
By Congress is the only group that's going to do it, which means that, we need associations or communities of pilots that are going to stand up and say, we're not going to take this. And the only thing is that hasn't happened. There has yet to be an association that's actually stuck up for the small guys. Like there were a couple that started last year and they fell off. And then, one group tried to take credit for someone else's doing something and it's kind of rabbit trailed. I would say the people who have really made the most progress in saying, you know what, this is complete overreach and we don't believe what you're touting and we're not going to go along for the ride is the FPV community, where they're just like, our stuff's a lot more dangerous and nothing's happened yet. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know what it reminds me of, Rob? Do you remember when CB radios came out?
I know what you're going to say. I was not a CB radio guy, so I should just play along. Yeah, I remember. Tell me about it, Paul.
Well, the FCC wanted to regulate everyone and their mother for using CB radios because it utilized the airwaves of the FCC, and everyone was like, nah, dude.
I don't see those guys.
Okay, let me try this one more time. And we were like, no, we're not going to do that. Okay? I don't know which accent is really going to better represent the...
Neither of those.
Okay. Moving on. Everyone was like, dear FCC, nah, dude. And they didn't register their CB radios. And even if you buy a CB radio, there's still a registration card in there today. No one's doing it. And that's where we are with FPV. And everyone's saying, hey, you need a Part 107 license to fly FPV because you're making money with it. Very simple. We're not seeing it.
And they're just saying, appreciate the suggestion, but I'm just going to go over here and fly my race.
Have to say, too, the FPV community is one happy group of individuals.
Yeah. That's fun. I mean, to like be in that virtual world or zooming around like that, why not be happy about that?
True.
We need to do more of that.
I agree.
Where's Sean at?
There's a lot more things that I need to do a whole lot more of. And on that bombshell, that's going to do it for us today.
Starting now.
Yeah, there's always something more that we can do. It's just about coming to terms with what you can do. That being said, thanks for listening. I would really love your feedback on this. This is a topic that is reverberating through the community, and it's something that is definitely sparking a lot of outrage, especially when the FAA openly at the conference last week that shall go nameless, they're pretty much saying, don't expect anything until we get remote ID.
Well, so I know we're trying to end this, but I will say this, that building an infrastructure such as this, it takes time. It's a complex beast, right?
It is.
So to give some leeway in that sense is a necessity. And again, we're just not going to get the local police department to enforce this stuff. They don't have time, especially in a town like Albuquerque, where they're already understaffed by 200 officers, right?
500.
Whatever the number is, it's a really big number. They don't have time to be worrying about somebody flying a drone without a license.
And you know what? At the end of the day, I think that's what you need to think about is like, it's so funny because I was thinking just the other day, I'm like, can I get in trouble for this? Like someone was a real big dick and did something, and I was like, it would be really funny just to move like 100 shopping carts behind that vehicle so they couldn't move. And then I was like, can I get in trouble for this? I was like, I could get in trouble for it. Would a police officer spend the time doing it? Nah.
Just for moving shopping carts behind a car?
I'm just trying to give, I don't remember exactly what
you.
this was about. I was just trying to give an example.
Just a random example.
Yeah. And I think the answer is you just got to focus on, at the end of the day, is this something that's going to be dealt with or not? So.
Yeah, sort of in the undercurrent of just doing the right thing in the first place.
Yeah, and when it comes to the Part 107 recurrency, you need to be asking yourself, are you going to be that guy that all the insurance companies are going to make an example out of? Because I don't want to be that guy.
Me neither.
And it's not going to happen anytime soon, but it's going to happen. And I don't want to put all that responsibility on my family.
Hear, hear.
All right, on that bombshell, which is now the second bombshell. Someone has already been complaining about me saying bombshells. Get over it. I don't care what you think. Bombshell. It's over. See you next time.